Something happened in 2007 that wreaked havoc on young men, impacting their emotions, their desire for sex, and their motivation for life in general. In this week's episode of Science and Strategy, we're going to explore how internet porn impacts the dopamine and motivation pathways in your brain, exactly what changed in 2007, and what you need to do to counter it. The study we'll be discussing in this week's episode is reference 847 in my list of sources. The lead author was Brian Parke. No relation to me whatsoever, it's just a coincidence, I promise. This was published in Behavioral Sciences in 2016, and the name of the article is Internet Pornography Causing Sexual Dysfunctions? A review with clinical reports. So this is what's called a meta-analysis. So this means that it brings together findings from other studies to try and spot the big patterns. And here are some of the findings that I took away from this meta-analysis. Before 2007, rates of erectile dysfunction and lack of sexual desire in men under the age of 40 were about 2 to 5%. So they were pretty low. But by 2011, rates of erectile dysfunction and lack of sexual desire in men had increased to potentially between 14 and 28%. So what might be driving that massive increase in erectile dysfunction and lack of sexual desire? Well, in 2007, there was a very new form of entertainment that came out, which is what this article refers to as PornTube style sites. So what do we mean by that? Well, in 2007, Pornhub, Xhamster, and RedTube all came out. And this meant that for the average person, suddenly there's the option of limitless novelty. So being able to look at all kinds of new forms of porn, easy access, and it's free, plus it's on a screen, which means it's highly addictive. And one of the things that these PornTube style sites do is, just like YouTube, they give you the videos in a random order, which integrates intermittent reward. So when you combine limitless novelty, easy access, no cost barriers to entry, a bright screen, and intermittent reward, you suddenly have a very, very addictive form of entertainment, which is online porn. Online porn is different to your brain to printed porn, which has existed for a very, very long time. This article also brings together some other fascinating studies. So, for example, it mentions that since the introduction of these PornTube style sites in 2007, recent studies are finding higher and higher rates of sexual problems in males. A 2014 study of males aged between 16 and 21 found that 53.5%, over half, had some kind of sexual problem. Most commonly, erectile dysfunction, which 26% of these young men had, and then low sexual desire, which 24% of these young men had. Looking at a slightly older age group, a 2014 study of active service personnel found that rates of new diagnoses of erectile dysfunction had doubled between 2004, before these PornTube sites, and 2013, when they'd been around for just 6 years. Rates of new erectile dysfunction diagnoses had doubled. And in 2007, researchers at the Kinsey Institute coined a new term, which is pornography-induced erectile dysfunction, or PIED. There's another lovely study that's mentioned in this article. It was in 2015. It was a study on high school seniors. And what this study on male high school seniors found is that 16% of those who watched porn at least once a week had low sexual desire. In those who watched porn less than once a week, only 6% of them were suffering with low sexual desire. And in those who watched no porn, 0% were suffering with low sexual desire. So why might this be? Well, it's been found that the combination of the limitless novelty, plus the nudity, plus the easy access, plus the screen, plus the intermittent rewards that are all forced into your brain by these porn tube sites, seriously disrupts a part of your brain called the mesolimbic pathway. Why is that relevant? This is a dopamine pathway and it is required for healthy, strong erections. It's required for interest in sex, especially interest in sex with the same partner, and it's required for motivation in general. In fact, a brain scan study found that porn tube sites may impact your brain in the same way as stimulants like cocaine. They are highly addictive and it really changes your motivation pathways, reinforcing the behavior, making you want the porn tube style sites again. So, how do you turn this into a strategy for your everyday life? Well, the first thing is we need to realize that use of these modern internet porn sites causes a big problem for erections, causes a big problem for your interest in sex, and causes a big problem for your motivation and pleasure in life in general. And unfortunately, it's been found that men who are suffering from this pornography induced erectile dysfunction are often misdiagnosed as having performance anxiety, when actually just discontinuing the use of internet porn would resolve the issue on its own. You don't necessarily need to be treated for performance anxiety. You don't necessarily need things like Viagra. You just need to stop watching internet porn. So, what's the usable strategy? This is something that I use a lot in my coaching program. And what I recommend is you discontinue using internet porn for at least 90 days. So why 90 days? Because it seems a little bit arbitrary. This is based on my knowledge of dopamine pathways in our brain, like the mesolimbic pathway and the mesocortical pathway. These are motivation circuits that get seriously disrupted when you do addictive things, and porn is a highly, highly addictive thing. In fact, one study, which we're probably going to look at in the future, suggested that internet porn affects your brain in such a powerful way it should be looked at differently to other forms of addictive things, because what you're basically doing when we're exposed to internet porn is we're taking a hammer to the motivation circuits in our brain and we are pummeling them, and then wondering why we lack motivation in the hours and days following watching that content. And so the strategy is to have a period of at least 90 days with no internet porn. And you might be asking yourself the question, well, should I watch it one final time, a kind of final hurrah? And this is a question that comes up a lot when people are thinking of giving things up. And I would say the honest answer is you know your body and you know your brain better than anyone else. If you're the kind of person who can have one final hurrah and then have 90 days off, then that might work for you. But if doing it one more time, watching it one more time, you find is going to make you watch it again, if you're constantly saying one more time, one more time, one more time, maybe now is the time for no more times, and you have those 90 days off and see how it impacts. Because the science is really clear on this. Having some time off internet porn is going to lead to stronger erections, greater interest in sex, especially with the same partner, and stronger motivation in general.